Hi everyone. Today we're talking about the question that everyone wants to know the answer to. What is coronavirus doing to my money? So unless you've been living under a rock, you've all know what coronavirus has done to most of the world, I would imagine by now, but especially in the UK. If you've been watching the press conferences that Boris Johnson and the Chancellor and the Chief Medical Officer have been doing, you know that other measures have been brought in almost daily to help cope with the spread of the virus and just to help limit the impact of it on our economy in general. So how is that affecting your finances? How is that affecting stock markets? And what measures have been put in place to try and temper the effect of the coronavirus or COVID-19? So a couple of weeks ago, the Bank of England lowered the interest rate from 0.25% to 0.1%. Now, only a week or two before that, it had been lowered from 0.5 to 0.25, so they brought in another measure. But why did they do that? Essentially, it was lowered from 0.5 to 0.25% because they estimated that people would have to borrow more over the next year or so to help cope with the coronavirus outbreak. If they're out of work or they're struggling to make ends meet, then they would likely have to borrow more from banks in order to meet their outgoings, just their normal spending. The problem is that 0.25% saving wasn't being passed on by the banks to savers. The banks were obviously a bit worried about what was going to happen, so rather than passing that saving on to their customers or to their new customers potentially, they didn't pass it on straight away, and that obviously didn't help things. So when that didn't happen, the Bank of England lowered the interest rate again to 0.1%, and that is the lowest rate that it's ever been in the UK. This has already had an impact on interest rates for mortgages, for loans, credit cards, and also for savings, and that's a big one. So while a lower interest rate is great for debt if you need to, and if you need to take out a loan or a credit card or any sort of mortgage at this time, then you can get a lot cheaper mortgage payments than you would otherwise get. But it means if you've got money in a savings account, you're not going to be getting very much back at the moment. So it's probably best to shop around and at least try and get the best interest rate you can, or look elsewhere for whatever you want to achieve with your savings. I don't know how long it's going to stay at that rate. 0.1% is unprecedented, and I know that word's been bandied around a lot lately, but it is unprecedented and it probably will stay like that for a little while, but it will go back up at some point. So you need to make sure that if you need to get credit and you want to get it at that rate, make the most of it while you can. It will go back up. It's just a case of when that will happen. The other thing people probably are concerned about is if you've got investments, what has the coronavirus done to investments? Well, as I'm sure you can imagine, they probably have seen a bit of a nosedive recently. Markets all over the world have been taking a hit, and the FTSE 100 since the start of the year has dropped nearly 30%. Now that sounds really scary, but it's 30% of the FTSE 100, and if you have investments that are diversified, you're not solely invested in the FTSE 100 and you're not solely invested in one company on the FTSE 100, or at least you shouldn't be. Because of that diversification, your portfolio shouldn't have taken such a nosedive, but it will have seen some drops, maybe around 10% or anything around that area, maybe higher if you're in a higher risk investments. If your portfolio does drop 10%, then the providers are obliged to write out to you by the end of the working day that happens, and they have to notify you of that. So you may have had some letters in the post that are cause for concern. Try not to be concerned. I know it's easier said than done, but if you're invested, you should be happy that stock market volatility happens, especially if you're in high risk investments. So you should have been prepared for that outcome when you took the investment out in the first place. If you have had stock market investments and you are concerned about the drops, speak to your financial advisor, or I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So just comment below and let me know. I'll be really happy to have a chat with you about your concerns. Ultimately though, what can you do? The answer to that is not a lot. If you do anything at the moment, if you sell any of your investments, you're just crystallising that loss, and that's pretty much the worst thing you could do right now. The best thing you can do is just to hold on tight, especially if these are long-term savings you're looking at, like pension savings or things like that. The stock market will recover, it's just a case of how long it takes to make that recovery. So really just sit tight for now, but if you do have concerns, please do speak to someone in the industry who can talk you through it and reassure you. Now, it's impossible to call what stock market's going to do, but in my opinion, we should be over the worst of it. So although you might see some more volatility over the next few weeks, it should start to stabilise, and in theory we should start to see some slow recovery. As more and more measures are brought into place, it shows confidence and that the Prime Minister knows how to deal with things and how to improve things or restrict the growth of coronavirus. And that sort of sentiment is what impacts on the stock market. So knowledge and confidence is a great bolster for stock markets. So I think we should start to see some recovery over the next few months. It may be slow, but all you need is some sort of recovery, and that positivity will feed through to the stock market and it will improve the recovery rate. I know things are tough, the economy is taking a bit of a hit generally. People are out of work, but the measures that have been brought in, certainly towards the end of March, will hopefully help with that. The Chancellor of the Exchequer has announced some great incentives to keep staff on rather than to let them go, and hopefully that will feed through and we will stop to see such redundancies, and people will be able to retain their jobs for this uncertain time. One thing that I think coronavirus has driven home for a lot of people, a lot of workers and a lot of employers is the working from home thing. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are doing more work from home than you normally would. Whether you're enjoying that or not so much, that's entirely up to you. But what I've found is that it's driven home the fact that locality doesn't really impact you. In the past week alone, I've had so many conversations with people over WhatsApp, video calling, Skype and Zoom. Having those sorts of facilities available means that I can talk to my clients wherever they are in the world, and that is a face-to-face meeting in my eyes. I might not be in the same room as them, but does that really matter? We can still see each other's faces and we can still discuss things a lot clearer than we could just over a telephone conversation. So I definitely think technology has come a long way to help us in that department, and I think moving forward it will change the way people do business, not in a bad way, but just in a new modern way, in a different way. And I think that will be for a lot of companies how things will go. You can Zoom or Skype me if you want to, and I'll be happy to have a video call with you. My details are below in the description, and you can check out my other social media channels. So get in touch if you would like to have a chat. So if this is a lesson to all of us about investments, it's check that you're happy with the risk level of your investments, but check you've got great diversification within your portfolio. If you don't have any diversification, you're more open to exposure to this sort of thing and this sort of volatility, and it will have more of an impact on your investments. So make sure you've got good diversification within your portfolio. And if you're concerned about this, speak to your advisor or please get in touch and I will have a chat with you about it. If you've got any concerns about coronavirus, let me know. Let me know if you think it's affecting your finances in other ways. I'll be happy to talk to you. But subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, and I'll see you in the next video. But until then, keep well and stay healthy.